When it was announced the WrestleMania 20 main event was going to be a triple threat match, I wasn't very excited. There's a few reasons why I felt a little underwhelmed at the time. Firstly, I'm just not a big fan of triple threat matches in general. I'm not saying there aren't any good triple threat matches out there, but if I had the choice, I would always pick a one-on-one match instead of a multi-man match. It's just a preference. Secondly, it's the WrestleMania main event. I always felt the final match at WrestleMania should be contested between the two people who had the most heated rivalry up to that point. It's not what always happened in terms of the main event selections, but a standard basic one-on-one encounter to find out who the best really was just felt right. No gimmicks, no messing around, the two best wrestlers in the company fighting for the company's biggest prize. The third and final reason why I wasn't too enthusiastic about the triple threat announcement at Mania 20 was the fact that Chris Benoit was included. Now, wait and hear me out here. Shawn Michaels and Triple H had the big storyline rivalry in 2004, and thanks to their work at the 2004 Royal Rumble and how their last man standing match ended at that pay-per-view, I really wanted to see HBK and Hunter settle their differences and finally end their storied rivalry on the WWE's grandest stage. Without putting him on a pedestal, Chris Benoit was great in the ring, but the way he just showed up on Raw out of nowhere and got involved in the Shawn vs Hunter storyline, it felt a little unnatural to me, at the time at least. I understand too that I'm in the minority here. Many people were surely getting tired of Shawn Michaels versus Triple H since HBK returned in 2002, but I wasn't. The score was truly never settled between the two degenerates, and there was no better place to end it all than at a milestone WrestleMania event in Madison Square Garden. Beginning WrestleMania 20, I wasn't all that bothered about the main event of the evening. By the time the show was over though, I realised I was 100% wrong in thinking the match wouldn't be all that good. It turned out to be an excellent main event. In regards to how the match played out and how the match flowed, it was one of the WWE's greatest ever triple threat bouts, and nowadays it's a match that the WWE want you to completely forget about, for obvious reasons of course. So today we're going to look at the triple threat main event at WrestleMania 20, but I have to say this before continuing, regular viewers already know the drill here. I've put together videos that feature Chris Benoit when he was an active wrestler before. If he's in a video, it's not some sort of tribute or anything like that. Mania 20 had a good main event. It's a match the WWE won't talk about, so I'll talk about it in today's video. This video is only intended to document the build up to the match itself, and how I and others felt at the time. As mentioned, it was Shawn Michaels and Triple H who had the heated rivalry going into WrestleMania 20, and their feud would play a big part in the overall build-up to the match in Madison Square Garden. Shawn and Hunter had traded victories on pay-per-view upon HBK's return, and in between those matches, they also faced each other inside the first ever Elimination Chamber match. In 2003, the Raw brand was dominated by Triple H and the Evolution stable. Shawn would feud with Evolution while also having matches against other guys on Raw, while Triple H would defend his World Heavyweight title against multiple different challengers. In a way, the Shawn Michaels and Triple H feud would kinda take a backseat while both guys worked against other people, but the rivalry was still always there. And at the very end of 2003, the feud was brought back to the forefront when Shawn pinned Triple H in the middle of the ring to win the World Heavyweight title. The only problem here was that HBK's shoulders were also on the mat, and therefore the match was actually a tie, meaning Shawn didn't win the belt after all. The Law and Order of the WWF, Stone Cold Steve Austin, felt that Shawn deserved a rematch, another chance to win the belt. So a last man standing match was booked for the 2004 Royal Rumble pay-per-view featuring the Heartbreak Kid and The Game. When it comes to Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, the SummerSlam 2002 return match is hard to beat, and that's thanks to the uncertainty surrounding Shawn's abilities going into the match and how he ended up doing a great job when all was said and done. But I think people may be sleeping a bit on the Royal Rumble 2004 match. This is one you need to check out if you haven't done so already. It's an absolute bloodbath. The two men have an extremely physical encounter that sees both champion and challenger getting busted wide open. In the end, Shawn hits sweet chin music, but he falls down when doing so. Neither man is able to stand up after the referee's 10 count, so the match ends in yet another draw. While the fans in attendance booed the outcome, and while it did feel like we were robbed of a true winner, I was thinking at the time that this must mean these two will face each other for the final time at WrestleMania. It made sense. The next pay-per-view, No Way Out, was a Smackdown exclusive pay-per-view, so there wouldn't be any other big world title matches from this point up until WrestleMania. The only thing that could really throw a spanner in the works is if a guy from Raw wins the Royal Rumble match, but that also didn't happen. Chris Benoit was part of the fabled Smackdown Six, a group of guys who Paul Heyman, the Smackdown lead writer at the time, pushed hard on the blue brand, and a group of guys who arguably may not have gotten as much attention if they were on the Raw show. Along with Eddie Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, Kurt Angle, Edge and Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit played a big part in helping people change their perception of WWE SmackDown. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero came to the blue brand when Vince McMahon moved Chris Jericho to Raw. Paul Heyman felt he had to get something in return, and Paul said on Chris Jericho's podcast that everyone in the room laughed at him when he said he wanted Eddie and Benoit moved over to SmackDown. Eddie and Chris weren't seen as megastars at the time, but Paul knew both guys were capable of a lot more than what they had been allowed to show so far in their WWE careers. Chris in particular had a decent upper mid-card run upon his debut, and a few main events scattered here and there, but he hadn't broken out as a top main eventer in the industry. WCW tried towards the end of his run in Atlanta, but it was too little too late. On Paul Heyman's SmackDown, the guys who could wrestle, really wrestle, were showcased more often, and they were also given way more TV time, and fans quickly realised that SmackDown was the place to watch top tier performances on a weekly basis. There was always something good going on in the ring on the blue brand, and most of the time it featured one or more of the Smackdown Six. Raw, at the time, felt more dominated by storylines and marquee names, and this isn't to say that Raw didn't have athletic top-tier performers, and it isn't to say SmackDown didn't have marquee names either, but both brands were very unique at the time, and it really did feel like Paul Heyman created a show that was vastly different to what fans watched on Monday nights. Many fans preferred SmackDown at the time over Raw. Chris Benoit played a big part in all of this, and it didn't take long for more casual fans to take notice of guys like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit thanks to their in-ring performances. In storyline, Paul Heyman, the on-screen GM of SmackDown, was giving Chris Benoit a hard time, and he refused to give Benoit any further shots at the WWE Championship. He could, however, enter the Royal Rumble match in 2004 and try to earn a shot like everyone else, but Chris would have to enter the Royal Rumble match at number 1. Only one other guy had successfully went the distance in a Royal Rumble match, and that was Shawn Michaels, so the odds were stacked against Chris big time. Still, Chris won the Rumble match after dumping the Big Show out of the ring in the final moments of the bout. A SmackDown guy had just won the Royal Rumble match, so I, like many others, thought that Shawn vs Hunter was more or less a sure thing for Mania 20. The night after the Royal Rumble, Triple H showed up to Raw and he said he and Michaels left it all in the ring. The two men scratched, clawed, they bled buckets, all for the World Championship, but in the end, Michaels couldn't get the job done. HBK shows up and Triple H wants to know what he has to do to get rid of Shawn Michaels. Why can't this guy just stay out of his business? It looks like Shawn wants to go one more time, and then Steve Austin shows up to make an announcement. This is it. This has to be the WrestleMania announcement. Austin says the Royal Rumble World Title match was like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was brutal, but because of how the match ended, Austin says to Michaels once again that he deserves a rematch. There's something that's stopping that rematch from happening though. The Royal Rumble winner gets the next shot at the championship. Shawn and Hunter look confused and they try to explain that a SmackDown guy won the Rumble, and Austin says the rulebook doesn't state which championship the Royal Rumble winner can go for. This means Chris Benoit technically is eligible to challenge Hunter for the world title if he chooses to do so. Chris's music plays in the arena, the crowd pops, and Benoit comes down to the ring and he makes it clear that he's now part of the Raw brand and he wants to face Triple H at WrestleMania. Benoit says he gets it, he understands these two have unfinished business, he understands Triple H and Michaels had a real battle at the Royal Rumble, but it doesn't matter if it's Shawn Michaels and it doesn't matter if it's Triple H. Chris Benoit won the Rumble and he's gonna face the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania 20. Chris walks back up the ramp, Shawn and Hunter look confused, and now it appears that Shawn vs Hunter won't be happening at Mania after all. The next week, Chris Benoit was featured on Chris Jericho's highlight reel, and this promo served to further portray Benoit as an underdog of sorts, someone who hadn't gotten a break throughout his 18-year career and someone who was finally getting what he deserved on the grandest stage possible. Jericho warned Benoit about guys like Eric Bischoff and the Evolution faction, and Benoit said he was well aware of what he was getting himself into when coming over to Monday Night Raw, but he's there to prove he's the best, and no one can stop him from winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. Jericho shows Benoit a video from the Royal Rumble where Ric Flair told the Crippler he doesn't have what it takes, and Flair comes out to have a few words with Benoit. Remember, these two had history in the Four Horsemen. The Nature Boy praises Benoit. He says he's one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the world, but Benoit is also a runner-up. He's always in second place. Chris Benoit keeps letting go of the brass ring, and things will be no different at WrestleMania 20. Chris challenges Rick to a match, but Eric Bischoff comes out and the Raw GM has different plans. He sends Mark Henry out to face Benoit, and Benoit wins the match with a crippler crossface as Triple H watches on. After the match, Steve Austin bumps into Shawn Michaels backstage, and he wanted to know why Shawn looked so down in the dumps. Austin wonders if it's because Chris Benoit showed up to Raw, and Shawn says yes, but it is what it is. Benoit won the Rumble, and Shawn has to accept that fact. Austin then tells Shawn that if HBK wants a world title opportunity, then maybe Shawn should do something about it. Shawn then faces Randy Orton in the main event, and after the bout, HBK gets attacked by Triple H. Chris Benoit ends up saving Shawn. Benoit and Shawn then shake hands, so it appears that Shawn's maybe not going to take Austin's advice and he's going to back off, and he's going to let the Benoit vs Triple H match take place as scheduled. The 9th of February episode of Raw featured the official contract signing between Triple H and Chris Benoit, and here's one to check out if you think for some reason that Triple H couldn't cut a promo. Hunter knocks it out of the park here. Triple H tells Chris Benoit to imagine what it'll be like. Imagine winning the World Championship at WrestleMania. Imagine lifting the belt in front of all those fans in Madison Square Garden. And imagine what it'll be like when his dream finally comes true and 18 years of hard work finally pays off. Chris gets lost in thought as he imagines what it would feel like to become the World Heavyweight Champion, and then Triple H tells Chris to snap out of it and face reality. Chris Benoit's lifetime of blood, sweat and tears will all be for nothing. At the end of WrestleMania, Benoit will sit all alone in the locker room by himself. There'll be no fans chanting his name, there'll be no one to pat his back. Chris will look down at his bag and the space he reserved inside his bag for the world title. The space will be empty, just like the remainder of Benoit's career. This is reality. The World Championship is reality, and Triple H is reality. So Chris can go ahead and sign the contract. Hunter tells Benoit, no pressure, kid, no pressure. Shawn Michaels comes out, Triple H leaves the ring, and Shawn tells Chris the last thing he wants to do is rain on Chris's parade. Shawn knows that Chris Benoit deserves a shot at the championship, and Shawn understands what Benoit went through in the Royal Rumble to get this opportunity, but Shawn assumed that Benoit would stay on Smackdown, and Shawn thought he'd have the chance to sort out his issues with Hunter at WrestleMania. HBK is so close to ending his rivalry with Triple H. Shawn will finish the feud, and he's gonna do it at WrestleMania 20 in Madison Square Garden. Shawn's gonna win the world title after defeating Triple H. Benoit says he respects Shawn. He won't deny Shawn the right to finish his business with Triple H, but it won't happen at WrestleMania. Benoit says he's gonna sign the contract, and at WrestleMania 20, it's gonna be Triple H versus Benoit for the world title. Shawn interrupts Benoit with a super kick, and Shawn then signs the match contract. Backstage, Eric Bischoff tells Benoit that he's gonna get his legal team to look over the contract and see what can be done. But in the meantime, Benoit will get a chance to wrestle Shawn next week on Raw. Thanks to a Triple H distraction, Shawn Michaels defeated Chris Benoit, and Hunter thought it was hilarious that these two were beating the hell out of each other. Steve Austin made an appearance after the match, and he made an announcement that quickly changed Triple H's mood. At WrestleMania, for the first time ever, a triple threat match would take place in the main event, and the world title would be on the line. Hunter's going to have to defend the title against two opponents, Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. From this point on, it was pretty standard stuff in the run-up to WrestleMania. You had HBK and Benoit failing to team up together to take on Evolution, and you had Triple H getting in cheap shots at every given opportunity. On the Raw before WrestleMania, Benoit and Shawn were able to agree on one thing. Neither man wanted to see Triple H leave WrestleMania with the World Heavyweight title, and it was this fact that brought Benoit and Shawn together, for a moment anyway. The two even shook hands in the middle of the ring, but then Triple H came out to address his challengers. While Hunter felt it was really nice that Benoit and Shawn were all buddy-buddy and they were able to shake hands, Triple H also feels that these two are forgetting one important thing. Triple H is the guy who always finds a way to overcome the odds, a guy who always finds an edge. Hunter's edge in the triple threat match will be the egos of Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. When it really comes down to it, Shawn isn't going to let Benoit win and Benoit isn't going to let Shawn win, and this means Hunter has the advantage over both HBK and the Crippler. The egos of Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit is all the edge Hunter needs to successfully defend his World Heavyweight title. We arrive at WrestleMania 20, March 14th, 2004. As mentioned earlier, I wasn't too enthusiastic about the main event, but I'm still going to watch the show and I'm still going to enjoy the show. Mania 20 itself was a good pay-per-view, except for that one slip-up that I'll cover in the future. But now it was time to see if Triple H, Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels could put on a classic in what I thought was a less than ideal situation. Before the match, Eddie Guerrero gives Benoit some motivation by telling him that no one really thinks he's gonna win, but no matter what the outcome, Eddie will still be Chris's friend. Benoit tells Eddie not to speak like that, and Benoit gets all fired up, telling Eddie over and over again that he doesn't care if no one believes in him, Benoit believes in himself. Chris gets really intense during the promo, and Eddie says this is exactly what he wanted to see. This is the Chris Benoit who fought Eddie in Japan, and this is the Chris Benoit who's going to go to the ring and rip Triple H and Shawn Michaels apart. Benoit says when it's all said and done, Eddie will have the WWE title and Chris will have the world title. Eddie did indeed retain the WWE Championship after defeating Kurt Angle. Now it was time for Benoit to keep his end of the bargain. The guys make their entrances, the crowd's still very lively even after sitting through a long WrestleMania show. The bell rings and it's time for the match to begin. Triple H was right, the egos of Shawn and Chris would lead to their little partnership falling apart, and it happens in a matter of seconds. HBK and Benoit want to get at Triple H and they don't mind throwing each other off the world champion in order to cause some damage to the game. This all leads to Chris going for the crossface early, but Michaels gets out, taking a Northern Light suplex instead. While all this was going on, Triple H stayed on the outside, and he surprises Shawn afterwards by coming back in and hitting a clothesline. This is something I want to bring up early. Pay close attention to the timing of this match in terms of when the guys leave the ring, when they come back in the ring, and also pay attention to the spots laid out when all three men are fighting each other at the same time. Shawn and Hunter get a moment to do a little work in the ring and Triple H hits the Hardy Race knee. Hunter then goes to the outside to keep Benoit in check, but Shawn hits a baseball slide and he follows this up with a moonsault from the top rope to the outside. HBK then has a choice. He can throw Benoit back in the ring to continue the beatdown, or he can throw Hunter back in the ring. Shawn, of course, chooses Hunter. HBK maybe made a mistake because Hunter hits the facebuster and he goes for the pedigree. Luckily, Benoit was there to stop Triple H hitting his finisher. Shawn then gets thrown into the ring post and he's gonna sail the shoulder for a little while. HBK stays hung up in the corner while Benoit hits a snap suplex on the game, but Chris ends up finding himself in the Tree of Woe. Hunter decides to throw Shawn into Benoit and this spot looked great. Benoit manages to get a boot up when Shawn throws Hunter into the corner. HBK then hits his flying forearm, but Chris Benoit afterwards comes running at Shawn at full speed and Michaels gets sent to the outside. Hunter then takes the 3 German suplexes. He tried to fight out on suplex number 2, but he didn't get very far. Benoit then signals for the diving headbutt. He goes to the top, but Shawn stops Benoit from diving off before lining up a superkick on Triple H. Triple H counters it with a DDT, and Michaels goes back to the outside. After a long fight in the corner, Chris Benoit takes a superplex. Hunter then goes for the pedigree again, but Benoit counters with an arm trap followed by the crippler crossface. The crowd pops, Hunter's in trouble, but Michaels comes back in to break the hold. HBK tries to give Benoit a taste of his own medicine with a few German suplexes. He manages to get in one before Benoit switches, and then we see the trifecta. Chris then hits the diving headbutt, the crowd again pops, but Shawn kicks out of the follow-up pin. It's going to take more than that to win this match. Benoit ends up getting sent to the outside following an HBK forearm, and Shawn then builds a lot of momentum when going after Triple H. He lands his signature diving elbow drop, he warms up the band, and Triple H gets hit with sweet chin music. Shawn makes the cover, and Benoit saves the match by pulling Hunter out of the ring. Shawn tries to make Benoit pay, but that doesn't go too well. Benoit gets Shawn on the mat and he tries to lock in a sharpshooter, and if you pay attention you can see Shawn holding a blade right here, and you can see the moment he gets colour. Shawn gets catapulted into the top turnbuckle and there's a loud gasp as the blood starts pouring out of HBK's head. Benoit locks in the crossface, Shawn's about to tap out, but Hunter grabs Shawn's hand and the match continues on. Triple H will not let the world title slip through his fingers thanks to someone else giving up. Benoit and Hunter then have a back and forth fight on the outside, with the two using the barriers and the ring steps to their advantage. Hunter then tries to hit a pedigree on top of the announcer's table, but Benoit counters it. It looks like Triple H is going to go through the table, but Shawn makes the save. Shawn and Triple H then look at each other before working together to put Benoit through the neighbouring announce desk. And now Shawn might get what he wanted all along. He gets inside the ropes and he tells Hunter to get in. It's time to settle the rivalry and it's time to finish it once and for all. I thought this was a great little moment, but the audience didn't care for it. There was no pop at all, and that's because they were either fed up with Shawn versus Hunter, or they were more concerned about Benoit getting back into the match. Either way, Shawn and Hunter go at it, and Shawn ends up getting the advantage. Hunter goes over the top rope, Shawn smacks Hunter's head into the ring post, and now Triple H is also busted open. Jim Ross says it looks like these two have been in a car wreck as Michaels throws right hands back inside the ring, but his final punch gets countered and Triple H hits the pedigree. All Hunter has to do is cover Shawn. The game crawls over, he gets an arm over HBK, but then Benoit appears from out of nowhere and the match isn't over yet. All three men lie on the mat as the crowd applauds. Hunter's the first one to get to his feet. He goes for the pedigree on Benoit, but Chris counters and he applies a sharpshooter. The roof comes off Madison Square Garden as Hunter literally scratches and claws while trying to break the hold, but Benoit pulls Hunter away from the ropes and the sharpshooter stays locked in. Just like Benoit earlier, Shawn appears from nowhere and Chris gets wiped out with a super kick. After failing to win the match by covering Chris, Shawn decides to warm up the band. He looks over at the other side of the blood-soaked ring. He lines up his very last shot at winning this thing, but Chris sends Shawn over the top rope. Hunter sees the opportunity. He goes for one last pedigree on Benoit, but Chris is able to put Triple H in the crossface and Shawn isn't around to break the hold. Triple H tries to stay in the match, he hangs in for a decent amount of time, and he even tries to roll out of the move, but Chris keeps it locked in and Triple H has no choice but to give up. Chris Benoit wins the WrestleMania 20 main event and Benoit becomes the World Heavyweight Champion. The ending was very dramatic. The crowd's reaction went up, then down, then up again, and the audience went crazy when Hunter topped out. Eddie Guerrero comes out during the celebration to congratulate Benoit. The two hug in the ring, and Eddie reminds Benoit to celebrate a little more just before WrestleMania comes to an end. What a match. The Mania 20 main event ended up being one of my favourite Mania matches, and yeah, I should have been more hyped up for this during the build-up. Watching another random triple threat match from this era and putting it up against the Mania 20 main event shows us how carefully planned the match truly was. Every moment meant something and all three men were involved in telling the wider story. It sure won't be everyone's favourite triple threat encounter, but it has to rank up there as one of the most meticulous, well put together three-way encounters that the WWE has ever produced. When WrestleMania 30 came around 10 years later, there was another triple threat main event, and I had no worries or lack of enthusiasm when it came to that one, and that's thanks to how good the Mania 20 main event ended up. Was the Mania 30 triple threat match better? That's up for debate. Personally though, I think the Mania 20 match was better. Shawn, Benoit and Hunter would do it again. They had another three-way match on pay-per-view the following month, and that one was also very well put together, but I'll save that for a later date. Let me know what you thought about the triple threat match at Mania 20 though in the comments, and let me know what you thought of the build-up. Thanks for watching guys, and take care.